What could terrify the most powerful couple in modern music so completely that they slipped out a side gate and vanished into the LA night, leaving behind a billionaire host, hidden cameras, and a rumor that still threatens to bring down an empire? Keep that question in the back of your mind, because tonight we're piecing together DaBaby's whispered confession, Diddy's explosive courtroom drama, and a marriage insiders say is already sliding toward the cliff. We reach that side gate, though. We need to rewind, just a few ticks, into a candle-lit lounge where only 15 hand-picked guests remained after the A-list crowd had been politely shown the door. Among them, one rap newcomer with a top 10 single, a 55-year-old mogul who never lets a lens out of sight, and the Carters acting, well, unlike the Carters. Because the real question isn't, did the cameras roll? The real question is, what happens if the footage ever leaks? DaBaby swears he had no idea Beyoncé and Jay-Z would be in the room when Diddy summoned him for a private meeting at the mogul's Holmby Hills spread in January 2020. He recalls walking past a marble foyer littered with half-empty champagne, flutes before Diddy's security locked the front doors behind him. The crowd outside dispersed. Inside, the vibe snapped from party energy to invitation-only ritual. The rapper says Beyoncé crossed the hardwood first, barefoot, he emphasizes, in a gauzy silver slip that reflected the pool lights seeping through 10-foot glass panels. She thanked him for keeping the culture spicy, a line he insists felt strange coming from the queen of controlled messaging. Her hand lingered on his forearm 2 beats longer than necessary before she pivoted toward her husband. Jay-Z, for his part, stayed planted on a low leather settee, thumbs drumming against a whiskey tumbler. According to DaBaby, Hov's eyes moved like a security camera, slow sweeps that never landed on any one guest for too long. It felt, the rapper would later admit, less like a meet and greet and more like an audition. Minutes later, Diddy's head of security appeared, whispered something, and every remaining guest except 15, including DaBaby and the Carters, were asked to respectfully step outside for a smoke. Doors shut, phones surrendered. From that point onward, DaBaby claims, nobody without NDAs got in or out. Why such selective secrecy? Prosecutors now allege Diddy routinely cleared rooms to record after-hours experiences on discrete 4K rigs wired into the molding. One ex-bodyguard says Sony SD cards were swapped and filed in the mogul's Atlanta safe, like episodes of a private series. DaBaby left that night unnerved, but the real fear would come 3 years later, when federal agents finally barged through Diddy's Manhattan penthouse with a racketeering warrant and a list of celebrity names that looked eerily familiar. More on that in a moment, Cliffline. But first, let's zoom into the secret tapes themselves, and why an entertainment lawyer says the asking price could buy a small island. Attorney Ariel Mitchell went viral in late 2024 after revealing she'd been approached to broker the sale of what she called one of the Diddy tapes. On live stream, she described stills, a teak headboard, velvet handcuffs, and a guest, even higher on the marquee than Mr. Combs. She refused to name that guest on air, but the internet filled the gap within minutes, circling the Carters like digital sharks. Mitchell says she declined the deal, citing ethics rules, but confirmed the clip looked non-consensual on the filming side. Cameras hidden in recessed sconces just above eye level. In legal terms, that's surreptitious recording, a crime that roars past garden-variety invasion of privacy straight into blackmail territory. Diddy retaliated quickly. In January 2025, he filed a $50 million defamation suit against Courtney Burgess, a man who'd claimed on News Nation to possess freak-off footage. The message to would-be tape hawkers was clear: speak up and face scorched earth litigation. Yet defamation suits cut both ways. Under U.S. discovery, Burgess's legal team can subpoena hard drives, cloud backups, anything that might prove those tapes exist. If a Carter cameo turns up, brand killer headlines could drop overnight. Senior partners at 3 Fortune 500 sponsors told Forbes they'd pause all active collaborations the moment Beyoncé or Jay-Z show up in federal exhibits. And the feds are watching closely. Because what started as whispers around Diddy's pool deck is now echoing down the marble halls of a Manhattan courthouse, from party floors to federal courtrooms. As of June 3, 2025, jurors have listened to 15 days of testimony alleging that Combs masterminded a decade-long pipeline of coercion, hush money, and cross-state trafficking. Yesterday's session alone saw a hotel security guard recount threats to erase footage documenting an assault on Cassie Ventura. Legal observers note that every fresh witness cracks the door wider for prosecutors to subpoena connected parties. That phrase sounds dry, until you realize it can mean any A-lister caught on film, however fleetingly, in an act prosecutors deem relevant to a larger trafficking pattern. Sources inside the SDNY office say sealed addenda list several Grammy-winning performers as potential material witnesses. Two staffers, speaking on background to Radar Online, claim at least one unopened hard drive allegedly shows a female superstar and her rapper husband engaging in explicit acts while substances lie on the coffee table. If prosecutors authenticate even a 10-second slice of that clip, subpoenas fly, depositions follow, and perjury traps bloom like nightshade. That chain reaction explains why, according to one longtime publicist, rich people who never run suddenly sprinted through a hedge and vanished down a driveway. And while lawyers traded motions, Beyoncé quietly shifted from Grammy throne to full-throttle merchandise machine. A move gossip pundits say isn't coincidence. It's survival. The Carter Conundrum. Start with the numbers. Ivy Park sales plunged more than 50% to $40 million in 2022, prompting Adidas to walk away from a partnership once projected at $250 million annually. The split became public in March 2023, leaving Beyoncé sole owner and solely exposed to any liability judgments. Within 12 months, she fired off a barrage of cash generators: the 57-date Renaissance World Tour, a cinematic concert film, her Saint Noir fragrance, the country-tinged Cowboy Carter album, and, most recently, a whiskey brand called Sir Davis. All launched with almost surgical timing around each new Diddy trial flare-up. Critics point to slowing ticket velocity. The Times reported last week that 5 UK stadium dates were still at 78% capacity, a red flag for an artist who normally sells out in minutes. Lower demand means higher marketing spend and less wiggle room if sponsorships freeze. Meanwhile, divorce murmurs refuse to die. Radar Online claims attorneys for both stars have quietly drafted contingency property divisions should a split become inevitable. One clause, an insider says, ring-fences streaming masters from any civil judgment tied to Combs-adjacent litigation. Still, money only explains the front-end scramble. Backstage, former collaborator Jaguar Wright alleges Beyoncé lives under a regime of chemical sedation and marital control that keeps her pliant and productive. Jay-Z, she claims, knows exactly which bottle calms her. Wright's outbursts triggered cease-and-desist letters, yet traction grew online, ballooning into TikTok montages of a glassy-eyed Beyoncé courtside at Barclays Center. Whether medicated or merely exhausted, fans began asking, how long before the Queen stops dancing? On command. And where do you run when every safe house has a hidden camera? Control, substances, and silence. Let's address the courtside clip first. Shot during a 2014 Nets game, it shows Beyoncé swaying gently, eyes half closed, lips forming silent lyrics to no music at all. Her camp chalked it up to late night rehearsals, but body language analysts on X insisted the sideways nodding screamed chemical fatigue. Months later, an anonymous post, allegedly from Beyoncé's longtime assistant, told media takeout Jay-Z doesn't always keep his hands to himself. The writer described playful shoves morphing into humiliating pushes whenever staff lingered too long. Lipstick alley threads connected the dots to older blind items about bruises concealed with body makeup. Jaguar Wright, doubling down on Clubhouse chats, claimed Shannon Sharp purposely avoided follow-up questions when DaBaby hinted the party turned freak fest. Sharp, she said, needed Carter goodwill for his NFL media deals. In other words, silence was leverage. Jay-Z's attorney, Alex Spiro, has fired off multiple legal threats to outlets hosting Wright's stories, branding them demonstrably false. Yet defamation letters rarely travel alone. They're often paired with hush payments, NDA offers, or strategic stakeouts of whistleblowers' credibility. Industry lawyers call it the velvet hammer. Still, social media skepticism surged. One TikTok creator racked up 4 million views comparing Beyoncé's alleged sedation tics to 2007 Britney footage. Another stitched a timeline of Jay-Z's strategic separations, whenever lawsuits targeted his circle, labeling the pattern, Vanishing J. Platforms flagged some clips for harassment, but the algorithm had already done its job. Financial. Walls may protect a brand, but emotional levees crumble in private, and insiders say the Carter's levee is cracking faster than tour posters can be printed. Money on the table. Parkwood accountants estimate Beyoncé's personal stake in the current tour at $106 million, after crew payroll, but before tax. One canceled stadium equals roughly $2.3 million evaporated overnight. Add perfume, film, whiskey, and you're staring at a $500 million rainy day war chest. Contrast that with worst-case legal exposure. If a jury labels any cameo on a Diddy tape as evidence of knowing participation in coercion, civil suits could soar well past punitive insurance caps. A single class action, one entertainment attorney, says could hoover $250 to $400 million in damages. Suddenly, the frantic brand blitz makes unsettling sense. Fans noticed. Under a TikTok caption that read, "She's cash grabbing before the crash," commenters debated refund policies and resale value of VIP packages. Even mainstream shoppers felt the shift. Google Trends logged a 700% spike in searches for Beyoncé tour refund insurance during week 2 of Diddy's trial. Corporate sponsors, meanwhile, have memorandums ready. One marketing exec tells us her firm added a Diddy trial clause to every musician deal in Q1 2025. Should artist appear in discovery materials related to ongoing SDNY indictments, sponsor reserves the right to terminate within 24 hours. Cold words, but cold math. Yet even money can't outbid fear. Because an empire built in high definition can shatter in high definition. Will the tapes surface? Hollywood's underground clip traders usually peddle 30-second iPhone scandals for 5 figures. Not this time. A veteran fixer says the price floor for a Carter cameo is 8 digits, minimum, because networks and streaming platforms would bid purely for documentary licensing, never mind tabloids. Court filings reveal SDNY already seized 16 encrypted drives from Diddy's Beverly Hills vault, plus 3 SD cards recovered from a contractor who tried to dump them in a Central Park trash can hours before the raid. Forensics cracked 10 drives so far. Contents remain sealed, but leaks trickle. One rumor describes a short clip titled 3 Queens Room Sir 3. No one knows the queens yet. Defense strategy hinges on discrediting video timestamps and arguing deep fake manipulation. Prosecutors counter that multiple clips show continuous, unbroken shots with synced audio, making AI overlays easy to debunk. If authenticated, even an 8-year-old video can buttress racketeering predicates under federal law. Behind the scenes, brand strategists whisper about contamination windows, a 5-day stretch after any leaked frame where sponsors either cut ties or ride out the storm. Beyoncé's camp, sources say, has drafted statements blaming unauthorized surveillance while stressing the non-consensual nature of any recording. That phrasing mirrors language in California's anti-voyeur laws, suggesting lawyers expect fallout. Trial clocks tick loud in marble corridors, and the judge just set a date that may line up eerily with Beyoncé's next concert stop. Countdown to a verdict. Judge Eleanor Vasquez told counsel she intends to charge the jury no later than July 8, 2025. That means a verdict window of July 9, 11, smack in the middle of Beyoncé's 2-night stand at Chicago's Soldier Field. Production. Insiders already blocked contingency travel for an emergency press conference. If Combs beats the sex trafficking count but eats a lesser prostitution facilitation charge, federal subpoenas could still spool out, especially if prosecutors think witnesses lied. Perjury indictments often follow acquittals because testimony remains under oath. A full conviction, on the other hand, detonates everything. Civil plaintiffs would file within hours against any celebrity seen in tapes, claiming emotional distress or facilitation. Insurance carriers might refuse defense, costs under illegal acts exclusions, forcing artists to pay from personal reserves. One veteran crisis PR exec summed it up. If that gavel drops hard, every NDA in California becomes confetti. Translation: expect ex-assistants, former stylists, and maybe a certain rapper whose career cooled to cash in black ink book deals. And that brings us back to the driveway, the sprinting power couple, and the night fear outran fame.